Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Todd Strader.
Ranking Member Takano, distinguished members, fellow veterans, thank you for this opportunity. Before I begin, I would like to first acknowledge and honor the tireless researchers, doctors, and staff of the VA healthcare system who dedicate themselves to the well-being of the veterans they serve every day. I have had my life in their hands more than once, and they are not the focus of my ire. I speak for the cohort of overpressured warfighters, a community and resource to thousands of affected service members, veterans, and their loved ones, a place for them to learn, share, collaborate, and belong. Also among us are researchers, stakeholders, journalists, concerned citizens, and even Hill staffers who have interest in the significant health risks from cumulative blast overpressure exposure, particularly from firing heavy weapons like mortars, artillery, and shoulder-fired rockets. The point of awareness is to bring about action, and so our cohort has also grown to be a true grassroots movement driven to recognize and address the often invisible and overlooked injuries sustained to our affected, pushing for better prevention, monitoring, treatment, and support for those impacted. The generations of us who have stood and lived in among these exposures understand and accept the inherent risk and hazardous nature of operating these large blast-producing weapons proficiently. It is the butcher's bill for their use on the modern battlefield. But what we do not understand and cannot accept is being denied proper care and compensation from the VA when that bill comes due. Since at least 2015, the Department of Veteran Affairs' own research has repeatedly indicated a potentially significant impact on veteran health caused by these occupational blast exposures. And for half that time, their research also strongly suggests a link to the perniciously relentless and enigmatic veteran suicide crisis. In fact, in 2022, a VA doctor even created a new ICD diagnostic code to fill this gap between research and treatment, saying, quote, "It has become clear through clinical practice and research that this type of TBI is a unique clinical entity," end quote. However, at a recent VA appointment with my neurologist, it was sobering for me to learn that he had never even heard of this diagnostic code. To his credit, though, he was very grateful for the information and said he would learn more. But here we are. It took me, a patient, to bring it to the attention of the attending neurologist at this VA medical center. This is the real state of things at the VA regarding blast overpressure's effects on our veterans. Not only does the VA marginalize its own doctors and researchers, it also brushes aside broad national media coverage from major outlets like the New York Times and 60 Minutes, all reporting a potentially significant problem for our military and veteran communities. Despite all of this, and to this day, the department only offers impotent half measures and vague promises of help coming someday, maybe. As usual, tepidity has the VA once again woefully behind in delivering what is due to our veterans. But this time, it isn't because of some unforeseen issue dropped on them by DoD neglect. This time, the issue is occupational blast overpressure exposure, the 800-pound gorilla they have kept obscured and shadowed in the corner of the room for too long. Institutional bureaucracy is all that blocks the way forward. Clinging to plausible deniability, fear, and doubt perpetuate an endless cycle of study pursuing non-existent answers of certainty, diluting the urgency of this issue and delay meaningful action. This view ignores the purpose of the VA and its binding commitment by insisting on conclusive, oversimplified bureaucratic answers to a unique and complex mechanism of injury that affects every system of the brain. Instead of helping, veterans are left with disjointed, ineffective, or even denied care and compensation, usually leaving them isolated and feeling as though they are somehow the problem and not their injury. This strategy of smoke and mirrors wants us to overlook that in order for a veteran to establish their service connection from the VA, the VA only requires a likely as not 50% probability of a link, not conclusive scientific certainty. This threshold is overwhelmingly met and exceeded by over a decade of peer-reviewed studies, media reports, and the VA's own data. In spring of 2024, we drafted a resolution to grant VA presumptive service connection to the veterans of these blast-exposed military occupations and their chronic TBI-related symptoms and disorders. We based our findings on dozens of DoD, VA, and NIH studies that repeatedly suggest injurious effects from cumulative low-level blast overpressure exposures. During an open forum in June, we presented these findings and proposal to the VA's Advisory Committee on Disability Compensation, where it was warmly received by the members, but to this date, there has been no response from the VA. And in the fall, we stood on our resolution to aid in drafting Ranking Members Takano's letter to then VA Secretary McDonough, which boldly asked the VA to establish environmental health registry for occupational blast overpressure exposure and to also grant presumptive service connection for blast-related conditions. Excuse me. In response to Mr. Takano's letter and his 22 signatories, now Secretary Collins deflects our ask and instead attempts to portray the issue as a newly discovered concern, offering only more protracted study and a vague outreach program where the veteran must do most of the reaching out themselves. As usual, this is not even close to what our affected deserve. Somehow our effort, though based on undeniable truth, had fallen short of moving the VA to real action and doing what is right on their own. They have since delivered little of substance to these deserving veterans. Opponents of our proposal shunt and dodge the crucial importance of this issue, relying on the antiquated shelter of nuance, semantics, and even partisan divide. I am here today because we have found a better way, one where bureaucratic skeptics have no space to prolong inaction, one that finally drags this 800-pound gorilla into the light, and I believe the PACT Act is the vessel that can finally deliver what these veterans are long overdue. Last year, our proposals focused on the broad effects of cumulative low-level blast overpressure itself, but what we have since realized is that we did not also account for this glaring and omnipresent injurious byproduct of it. Look at any image or video of soldiers firing mortars or artillery or breaching obstacles using explosives. What you will see accompanying each blast is the tremendous amount of gun smoke and dust it creates. The soldiers are exposed to the bone-rattling blast wave and the inseparably suffocating airborne particulate matter it produces every single time that weapon is fired or explosive is set. Furthermore, and unique among exposures, these chronic blasts with their choking smoke hit soldiers while under extreme physiological stress. Their adrenaline is surging, hearts are pounding, hands shaking, lungs gasping through toxic smoke, starving the brain of oxygen needed to handle the sensory overload, deepening the impact. What's more, it may add up to hundreds, even thousands of exposures over an entire enlistment. Occupationally and environmentally, these chronic exposures combined are without question, quote unquote, toxic by any measure and by a wide margin. Moreover, many of the same toxic compounds already recognized by the PACT Act are also present in this inescapable particulate-filled smoke produced by these blasts. Likewise, cumulative low-level blast exposures tear brain cells apart, alter DNA, and disrupt every system of the brain, causing chronic, insidious health problems that can manifest years after exposure. Similarly to cumulative effects of low-dose radiation exposure, also recognized by the PACT Act. Today, I would like to present our latest proposal for your consideration, the Blast Overpressure Accountability Act, BOAA, which aims to amend the PACT Act to recognize cumulative low-level blast overpressure along with the associated airborne particulate matter it creates as both an occupational and environmental toxic exposure. These exposures are not an unforeseen circumstance of service. These exposures are a job requirement, a reality necessary to proficiently and effectively operate these weapons of modern warfare. And although the science of blast overpressure is relatively new, a burgeoning terra incognita of research discoveries, the problem is not. Military occupational blast exposure is very real. It causes injury and has affected veterans since the onset of modern warfare and the use of these heavy weapons. These are the unmistakable facts, and it is a shameful injustice and outrage that veterans suffering the health consequences of it continue to be burdened with having to prove themselves worthy of the care and benefits they are rightly due. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Strader.